I know this video will find people at any time in the year, but right now it's January, right after the holiday season, and the thought of making anything even slightly constricting is just no. I want comfort clothing while I get into the headspace where I can plan healthy menus and detox after the high sugar, high carb winter months. Thank you, Canadian Thanksgiving, Halloween, Christmas, and New Year's. Not to mention American Thanksgiving bleeding over the border to make sweets even more present at the darkest time of year. So, I want loose-fitting clothing that's not going to make me feel like I indulged more than I did. I also want to look good, and I found that a lot of store-bought clothes just don't fit me very well, even in plus sizes that are supposed to be my size. Newsflash, nobody is a standard size. We all have our little quirks, so if you're watching this and thinking that you have very similar problems, you probably do, no matter whether you're straight size or plus size. I've already figured out that I tend to wear more pants than skirts, and the pants I love best are relaxed fit activewear pants, basically yoga pants with a little extra room in them. So with that in mind, I've had my eye on the Tumalo Jumpsuit by Sew House 7 for a few months now, and even picked up some really cute fabric. This stuff. It was on sale from Fabricland's clearance section, if memory serves. Well, most of my fabrics are from the clearance section. I think I picked up most of them over the summer or early fall. For some reason, they had quite a few knits at that time. The jumpsuit has a tank-like top, either high or low neckline, that attaches to high-waisted bottoms, so it looks a bit empire-waisted. Really cute, and I'm hoping I don't have to add a lot of length to the midsection. It'll also look really cute with a shirt underneath it, so that's a good thing. As I learned making the Helen's Closet Lockhart jumpsuit, not having enough length in the torso leads to wedgies, camel toe, and poor fit in the bust. Having too much length, however, means the crotch of the jumpsuit starts drooping to your knees. That said, cutting down something that has too much length usually works better than having to find a way to add more fabric, so measure twice, cut once, I guess the saying goes. The instructions give a measurement for the distance from the shoulder to the crotch, basically covering the distance from the shoulder strap over the bust and the tummy to the crotch. Apparently there's plenty of room there, so we'll see how it goes. I don't foresee any challenges with putting together the jumpsuit, and I've made Sew House 7's Oxbow pants, so I'm reasonably well assured the instructions will step me through the construction. The challenge will be cutting out fabric in the middle of winter with two cats who think fabric is something to play in and shred. Here goes nothing. I know, I need a haircut. I just don't want to go downtown right now because that's where the family barber is. Anyhow, it is a very chilly day outside, at least for us. I thought what I would do is work on the Tumalo today. I'm going to just make the Tumalo in the size 34 because I'd rather not have to try and do a full bust adjustment and lengthen it from the looks of it, and you can't really see it because it's below here, but it's below here is the full length will actually get below my bust. So if I was to go with the size 24 like the pattern indicates I probably should because of my upper bust measurement, well then it might not fit around the side or in the length. So I could do a full bust adjustment on the 24 and possibly lengthen it, but what I decided to do was just, and I don't know whether you can see it very well, I'm just altering the strap placement and the neckline and the arm side so that it's at the same height as the size 34, but it's over where the size 24 should hit on my shoulders, because that's where I need it, is I need it at the size 24 place. And then I've checked it out against here and it should come around in the right places. And if I need to zhuzh the neckline and the underarm, I can zhuzh the neckline and the underarm. The main thing is that it manages to get to that widest point. And if I need to take things in, I can take them in. I just can't make them bigger. So there we go. And I've done that for both the front and the back once I've got these cut out, then I should be able to slap them back to back and make sure everything's lined up properly. And we'll be good to cut things out. I just need to finish cutting out around the edges because I wasn't sure what size I was going to be cutting out. There was a part of me that was thinking, well, do I start with the 24 up top and go out to a 28 and then at the waist go out to the size 34? Let's just do the size 34, and if we need to nip anything in, we'll just alter it. If it needs to be tailored a little bit, it needs to be tailored a little bit. I'd rather start big and work in than make a lot of adjustments to the pattern and go, whoops, that was wrong. Particularly with a knit fabric. The hems on these things are huge. Like, this is for a normal person. They've added in like a whole 4 inches for somebody who's my size. And I don't know about you, but pant legs, like ankles, like my ankles are probably like an inch bigger than, maybe 2 inches bigger than somebody who is a straight size, not 4 inches. I'm not walking on tree trunks, folks. I'm walking on legs. Which, it's kind of one of those things that drives me nuts about these things, but we'll see. We'll see how it does, because I believe the whole idea is that it's supposed to flow nicely from your hips. And yeah, whatever. At any rate, I think I've bored the cats enough that they're leaving me alone for the time being, which might be my salvation in getting things cut out, because, well, it being somewhere between -12 and -15, the cats aren't spending any time in the sunroom today, that's for sure. We'll see how this goes. All right, so Tumalo has been cut out, and I think what I'm going to do is put things up for the day, because I am rather worn out from wrangling all that fabric. Knits are a little more challenging to pin and cut out, and having to wrangle it on the surface has been a challenge. It has been a challenge. So I'm thinking that what I'm going to do is take some time off, maybe go upstairs, do some spinning, possibly play a video game. It's, Final Fantasy 14 and or Baldur's Gate time. And we'll see where I am maybe tomorrow, because I think the husbeast has some stuff he has to do outside of the house, which means that as long as the cats will behave themselves, and usually they do when I'm sewing, we will get Tumalo sewn up. I will be very happy if I can get my lovely, super wide-legged Tumalo done in the next couple of days. And we'll see where we are after that and what I've got the time to do. Okay, so I'm going to go upstairs. I am going to sit down for a little bit, possibly have a cold drink, and pat a kitty cat. Are you gonna let me get any work done? You gonna let me get any work done? No? Didn't think so. According to this, the next step is to line up, the pocket and the front pant. So put the front pant in the front and the pocket in the back. We'll see if this one lets me do that. She's been very snoogly this morning, haven't you? Yes. If you notice my lighting moving around, it's probably her rubbing her face on it. But this was as far as I got yesterday. Just that one little bit of sticking the trim on the pocket. And that is because I was having some difficulty with my double needle. The choices are zigzag stitch or double needle. And I thought that I would do the bougie thing and go double needle until I found that it just wasn't working out for me. Everything was bunching. I kept getting fabric caught underneath the little plate. And rather than fight with it, I just sort of went, you know what, screw it, let's go for the zigzag stitch. And the zigzag stitch worked right out of the box. Found my pocket pieces. This is why I keep little scraps lying around, because if I need to try something out, I was really trying very hard to get that twin needle to work. It didn't work. Zigzag, right out of the box. And you can see the result on the back where things have gotten bunched up, like right in there. It's not good. So try things. If they're not working out, try the alternative. You might find that it works easier for you. And as much as I would like to have that slick, polished, commercial double stripe of, single line stitching, there's nothing saying that you can't make the double, the zigzag look a little bit more bougie. So it's all good. It's not on a fully straight surface, but I think I've got this figured out. So I think what I'm going to do is get set back up for my zigzag stitch on here and get to sewing the rest of this thing together, because hopefully that little bit was the hardest part, that trim. I know I'm probably, absolutely wrong, but the one thing that I kind of wish that I had done was serged this edge. Now, the instructions are instructions are just a little unclear on how to do that pocket trim edge. I mean, it sounds pretty clear, and then you start doing it and you go, should I be tucking my live ends under? Should I be seam finishing in some way? And as far as I can tell, you're just kind of leaving your raw edge out flapping in the breeze. They mentioned that you could serge one of the edges when you're doing the first step, which is to place things together and then turn it over, press. Hi. But yes, during the construction, there are times when you probably could just serge that edge, but it doesn't give you the instruction to do so. And I think that if I do this pattern again, which I might, we'll see how it fits when it's done, I'm probably going to serge that edge, so I might have to make a note so that my pockets aren't flying out in the wind. I'm surprised it looks like it's trying to pattern match. Awesome. I thought all hint of pattern matching went out the window when I started using those T-pins. Upholstery T-pins are probably not the best thing for working with knits, just a note. Okay, so we're in kind of a bad news, good news situation, and the bad news is she's just a little big. Just a little bit. The good news is I can pinch that in and taper it down to my waist and my hips, which are pretty much the right size. So there's our good news right there. And the other good news is that I caught it before I did the trim around the arm side. I had already kind of accounted for that in where the arm side and the neck were going to go when I was changing up the pattern. So I really think I did a pretty good job at kind of guesstimating all of that stuff so that it does allow me the ability to sort of pinch in where I need to. So the things that need to be done is do up the inseam, do up the finishing up here, and pinch it in. So that hopefully won't be taking me very long. If I'm not done today, I should be done tomorrow and have at very least one brand new thing to wear. And I have a feeling this thing's going to be nice and comfy cozy. So, good work. I am enjoying getting to know the serger a little bit better. As you were probably noticing in my clips, I was running it through the zigzag stitch on the sewing machine first and then going to the serger. And that's because it's a lot easier than having to deal with pins. For the side seams, I went with the pins, and it could have gone a lot faster probably if I had just zigzag stitched first and then shot it through. But the nice thing is that it's at that 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, rather than the zigzag stitch wandering all over that 3/8 of an inch line. Either way, I have a feeling this thing's going to fit really nicely. Let's get to it and see if we can get this finished up today. Okay, we're on the last couple of steps. Off camera, I seamed up the inseam and I pressed the hem up. I also pressed the armhole and neckline trim. The Tumalo Jumpsuit has a lot of what I consider to be raw edges. And coming from making a lot of woven garments, raw edges make me nervous. So I'm going to be shooting a few things through the serger, and once that's done, it's just going to be a matter of zigzagging things into place. So I'm going to serge the edge of the hem, and then it will get zigzagged into place because it's already pre-pressed. And then I'm going to place the armhole and neckline trim and just serge that and then turn it up, press it, and zigzag it into place. And that way everything has, at least most of the things, kitty, not on the pins, and that way everything has its edges encased, or at least as best as I can. There is a view of the Tumalo Jumpsuit where you leave the hem raw and just let it roll up. And I feel a little insecure doing something like that. Hopefully this one will let me finish this off before I have to pack it in for the day. All right, we good? Okay, so let's talk about this because I do have some notes and I'm actually going to refer to them. I've got the iPad here. So the biggest problem is that, well, obviously it's too big. So it's too long in the torso. The top is a lot better after the alterations, but it's under the bust where we start to really see the problems. And so it's too long in the torso, the crotch is down way too low, and it makes the legs too long and the legs themselves are just way too wide. So that's a whole lot right there to begin with. So I need to have a smaller size, and when I did the alteration here and I checked my underbust measurement, my underbust is closer to a size 28. The rest of the top is closer to a size 24. So that's pretty easy. You start with a 24 and you kind of taper the pattern out towards a 28. The length around the torso, so that's from here down to the crotch and then back and up and around, so the distance around the torso, is about the same as a size 28. So that is what I'd probably want for, at least for the underbust. And then I could taper out to a size 30 towards the hips and then taper back in. So what I'd be looking at is a top of 24, underbust 28, and hip of 30. And then I would have to definitely taper that leg in because I checked the size of the legs against the size of my usual daily wear, active wear pants, which are a fairly straight leg, and that straight leg has a 9-inch difference with these. These are 9 inches wider than my usual pants, and it makes going up and down the stairs really, really difficult. I've tried it a couple of times today, just running around getting things, and it's kind of like having to bundle up a skirt, only it's your pants. So it's very much like wearing the Winslow culottes, and it kind of makes you ask, when does it stop being a pair of pants and start being a split skirt? Obviously, it would make the shorts version of this a little bit more like a flirty little sundress type of deal in the summer, which is great. I think I might do that. But for the everyday, for this time of year when we've got snow on the ground and it's fluctuating anywhere between 10 degrees Celsius and minus 30 depending on the day and whether we're getting a Chinook, that's not going to fly. So if I want to have the long-legged pants at any point in time, I'm going to have to figure out how to taper it so that they are safer. Because the last thing I need is to take another tumble down the stairs, right? What else have I got here? Yeah, I mentioned for some reason designers think that fat people's limbs are exponentially bigger, because I've noticed that, you know, you'll see like a half to a full inch of difference in the pant leg for each size, and it's like, I don't think that's the way it works. So I'm definitely going to be tapering things in, possibly down to the smallest size at the ankle to see how that works. Oh, goodness. Let's see here. Other issues, the fabric is too light. So it's a very lightweight knit, and it would be more suitable for a t-shirt than it would be for an actual jumpsuit. It's a little too light and I'd feel a little weird wearing it in public. Around the house is fine, but out in public, not so much. Another thing is that I thought that the pattern itself, like the graphic design on it, was going to be more like patchwork, and instead it is most definitely stripes. And those stripes do not line up. I did not do any kind of pattern matching. And this is the sort of thing that really does require pattern matching to look really good. So as a toile, it's not bad. As an idea of how to do the pattern and whether the pattern's something that will eventually work for me, great. Something to wear out in public? Absolutely not. No, not gonna happen. Let's see here. I do have it written down that I would like the fabric better as a shirt. And I do have some leftovers. I think there's enough to make a front piece and a back piece. And there is plenty of, there's plenty in the leg. I was taking a look at the legs and going, I could make a really good set of sleeves out of those. Just part of one pant leg, just set of sleeves. And who knows, maybe that would help fix it, is I could just turn this into a short romper and also have a t-shirt. So if you do see me wearing a t-shirt with this print on it, you'll know what happened. That said, I did, it's over here. I did buy new fabric because I realized that I needed a slightly more dense fabric. Now they say that you can go as far as, say, jogging fleece, which is basically sweatshirt material or track pants material. You could use terry. I don't particularly want to go quite that heavy, but I did remember that last year I made a really nice shirt dress that unfortunately I can't wear because it's a little too small, and it's just a limitation of the pattern itself. So if I lose some weight, it'll fit perfectly fine. But now that I know the properties of that fabric a little bit better, I went back to Fabric Depot to see if they had any more of it. And this was a pink top. And unfortunately they didn't have any more pink, but they did have the same pattern in black. So it's the same stuff. It's just a little tiny bit heavier than this, and it's in a black material. Well, a design, black on gray. And I think that will do perfectly fine for making me a nice little jumpsuit that I can wear pretty much wherever. It should not be see-through or spit through. And will hopefully have a little bit more of the structure that I need to be able to wear it out in public and not feel like I'm just on display. There's also enough fabric in here. I picked up about 6 meters. So there's enough to not only make myself another jumpsuit, but also another shirt. Because I do still want to make a shirt. The fact that I was kind of stymied by not getting a shirt done this week, means that I really do want to put more of a push on that. And I know I've got another project that I've got lined up for the next month. But if I've got a little bit of time on a weekend, maybe I can do that in my off time and make a couple more shirts. One of which being out of the new fabric. So there we go. That's the main stuff. I mean, is it cozy? Yes, it's very cozy. It's very nice and soft is what this outfit is. And it's very possible that what I'll do is try to find a way to adjust the crotch and see if I can, because the pockets do go down a little too low. It's like really digging down there towards my knees to be able to get to the bottom of the pocket. Maybe what I will do is put in like a little stop on that and figure out if I can just sort of shorten the pocket. I know, sacrilege, but we do what we must. Other things that I'm going to do is I'm going to also fiddle around with the sewing machine a little bit more, because I wound up using a lot of zigzag stitch. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's perfectly fine. I found out that using my interlocker worked perfectly fine for things like the trim, even though the instructions seemed a little skeptical. Personally, it worked absolutely fine for me. So I think that what I will do is probably use the interlocker a little bit more to make sure that some of those raw edges are encased, because if you're not careful, there are quite a few raw edges just sort of flapping around. And you can cover those with a zigzag stitch if you don't happen to have an interlocker, but luckily for me, I do have an ancient secondhand interlocker downstairs, so I can serge those edges. I have also considered seeing if I can do a dual stitch on it. There is that option, I think, but it means having to take some of the thread out, and most folks who have a serger will tell you that if you can avoid having to rethread your serger, try to avoid it at all costs. So that's one of the things that I might try, or I might look into, but the main thing is going to be looking at my usual sewing machine, the FAF, and figuring out how to twin stitch properly. And I have a feeling, because I was getting a lot of tunneling there, I was getting a lot of tunneling and the thread was breaking, so I have a feeling it has to do with tension. So I'm going to be fooling around with that a little bit more, because I have to admit the twin stitch does look a lot more aesthetically pleasing than the zigzag stitch. Zigzag definitely has its time and place. And if you're looking for a more industrial look, it looks perfectly wonderful. I mean, it looks great. But for a slightly more polished look, I'd be looking towards using the twin needle. So that's something that I really want to figure out, whether it's, say, the thread that I was using was a little too brittle and was snapping, or whether it was the tension that I was using, or maybe it was the needle itself. Maybe I need to go out and buy another twin needle. I think I did at one point, so there is probably a twin needle downstairs. It's never been used. Hopefully it's a ballpoint twin needle. Who knows? Either way, there are a few things that I can take a look at. I also noticed that if I made my zigzag stitch a little bit bigger, I also had to change my tension there as well. So these are things that I'm probably going to have to start putting down on a post-it note and slapping into my manual. One of the things that I noticed with the sewing machines, both my Kenmore and the FAF, is that the previous owners, in this case my mother and my grandmother-in-law, both would put notes into the manuals when they found like a particular quirk of the machine. And there have been a couple of times, like for instance with the serger, I found notes from either my mother-in-law or grandmother-in-law as to what settings were best. And that made a bit of a difference when I was starting to calibrate the serger. So I'm thinking I might have to do the same thing with the regular sewing machines as well. As when I find a quirk with them, is do the same thing that they did, write it down, not necessarily on the manual, but maybe on a post-it note and slap it in there. I noticed that there's some dried tape where they cello-taped things. So maybe not use tape, but definitely try something like a post-it note where the adhesive doesn't generally tend to get as gnarly, but we'll see. If it comes down to it, I can always use a stapler. But the fact remains that if the machines are still in good working order after I'm done with them and they get passed along to another family member or sold or what have you, then those notes as to the quirks of the machine and how the machine prefers to be used, they'll be handy. So that is another thing that I'm probably going to be doing over the next little while as I'm using them. And it's probably something that you can take on into your own life, because if you're somebody who sews and you're finding that you're almost always boggled or stymied or just frustrated by the way that things are going, and you know that you had solved it earlier, just make a note. And it will hopefully help jog that memory of what actually worked for you, so that it saves you some time and some frustration down the line. For all my kvetching and all of my notes to the contrary, it is a very comfortable outfit, and I'm kind of hoping that I can eke out a little bit of time to sit down and make a slightly more me style of jumpsuit, and that will hopefully be nice and comfy for things like gaming night, so that if I'm on my usual place on the sofa and playing D&D with my friends, or over at my PC playing Final Fantasy, I'll have something really nice and cozy and comfy to snuggle up into. This is not bad, but it could be better. And I guess that's the takeaway. It's not bad, but it could be better, and we're gonna work on that. Well, now this is awkward. I've reached the end, and I don't know what to say. So I guess I'll see you next time.